Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of CookieCast. Today on CookieCast, it's the football podcast. We're a man down, we're a man short, but no less podcast content other than like a quarter of the... The football podcast is still the same. There's just one less person here. Yes. All the great football, all the great news, all the great predictions, all the great football, everything is still here for you to enjoy. Before we get started, please do consider like, share, subscribe and comment. Leave a review where you can leave a review and share the podcast around. That's the main one. Share the podcast around. Right, let's get started. Here we go. This is CookieCast, the football podcast.
Recording in progress.
Yes indeed. Welcome back on in to your warm, bubbly bath that is the CookieCast podcast network, bringing you some delicious, tasty football updates. As you can see for the people watching us on YouTube, sadly, we're not a foursome tonight. We are a magnificent trio. Mr. Woodmansey not able to join us as he is enjoying his birthday, no less. So many happy returns to Mr. Woodmansey if he's indeed listening to this. You old swine, you. He'll probably be back next week, joining us for more fun and frolics involving his team. So that just leaves us with Mr. Woodmansey, not Mr. Woodmansey, I've literally just said he's not here. Mr. Cook and Mr. Moore, how are we, sirs?
Good.
Yep.
Excellent, we like to hear it. We like to hear it, indeed. So, quite a few games to get through this week. So we've got all of week 12 and then we've got all of week 13's games to predict. So we'll make a start with week 12's fixtures, which started with Nottingham Forest taking on Luton Town. How did this one pan out, Mr. Moore?
It was all going swimmingly until about 5 minutes from the end. Kind of watching the little amount of highlights on Match of the Day and like watching Soccer Saturday. Sounded like Forest dominated the first half. Didn't score. Created a few chances but didn't score. However, in the second half, come out the double Wood for everybody. So Chris Wood, who's much maligned with the Forest fans, comes out and scores 2 goals. A couple of nice finishes. Forest look quite good. Then, reading the report / listening to the official, I don't want to call it the official Nottingham Forest podcast, it's the podcast, the Forest podcast run by the local newspaper, suggested that Willie Bolly went over to Cooper about 75 minutes and said he was knackered. So could he come off? Perfect timing, 15 minutes left with like no game for a week. But, you're knackered. So then ensued chaos, shall we call it? To which Cooper... It's a criticism I've had of him, and I don't want to sound... there's a lot of Forest fans jumping on the bandwagon of criticising Cooper for making the subs. And, I think I said last week it's a should-win game, not a must-win game. But then when you look at it, we've played all 3 promoted clubs at home now, and I should get to the punchline. Forest conceded 2 goals in the last 10 minutes to then draw 2 each with Luton. But he brought on 5 defenders. So Worrell came on, Kiyate come on, somebody else. They just basically brought on 5 defenders to try and protect the lead against Luton, who I think the kind of general kind of gist is of what I've seen is they're a kind of club that you just when you've got your foot on the neck, you stand on them, kind of thing. You don't let them up. They should have just, at 2-0, they were cruising, and you just tell him to go and stay on, you're fine, or maybe bring on an extra defender to support him, but leave him on the pitch. But no, and that's the kind of game that can get you sacked. And I think that's my worry now, is that last year Forest fans saved Cooper, and I think they do the same again, or try to. But with the amount of investment put in the club this summer, again, I don't think the owner's going to listen this time. And there's it'll become more apparent later on. There's quite a tough run of fixtures coming up, and if it doesn't go well, because it's no win in 5 or 4 or 5, and some of the performances are pretty poor, and like I said, 5 points from the bottom, 5 points from the 3 promoted clubs from your home games is a worry kind of thing. So 2 goals from Wood. Adebayo, I think, was one of them, and I can't remember the other guy who scored.
Chidozie Ogbeni. Republic of Ireland International got the first. Adebayo got the equaliser. I know what you mean. It's obviously Forest, like it or not, have to consider themselves as one of the teams that are in the fight to avoid relegation. Just as is obviously they're a team that's only in its second season back in the division. So
I think it's one of them ones where we're in the relegation fight, but in that similar kind of thing of like Palace being in a relegation fight kind of thing, that you shouldn't. That you're slightly better than that, but
yeah, I think you could argue that the Premiership's almost become sort of 2 leagues, or maybe there was an argument that it was 3. So you had like your top, say, 5 or 6 teams that arguably could win the league, whereas it was mainly only going to be 1 or 2. Then you had that sort of middle clutch of another, say, 6 teams that were like sort of fighting to get in the European positions, and then the last 8 was the teams that were always going to be sort of like fighting to not be in the bottom 3 each season. And I'd say it's almost gone now where it's almost like you've got 6 to 8 teams who arguably should be in looking to win the league, get in the European positions, there or thereabouts. The other 12, for me, are basically fighting relegation every season. Because even if you look at like last season, I think Bournemouth finished like 14th or something like that. And there's been seasons in the past where, like Southampton, the season before they went down, probably finished like 15th or something. But in the seasons before that, they'd finished as high as 6th in certain seasons. And it only takes a couple of transfer windows for your sort of your squad to become stale, and you to be able to fall back into that sort of clutch of teams that's always fighting against it. So I know what you mean in that sort of, if you are in that clutch of teams that are like fighting against going down, winning your home games against those other teams is pretty much vital. And to only get 1 out of 3 against the promoted sides isn't a great return. So I know what you mean, and it's worrying. And obviously, if he's got a bit of an itchy trigger finger at the best of times, it's just another sort of thing, sort of giving him credence to do it again. Yeah,
I think the big thing is obviously, last year, what was it, 31 of our points that kept us up came at home.
Yeah, and
that's not coming to fruition at the moment. So then you start to worry that it's going to is it going to turn into this kind of like, I know what Forest fans are like, and I'm trying not to be a typical Forest fan. It turns quickly, and they kind of, from the reports, it's already like they sit there and expect to be entertained, and they expect to win, and they get on the back of players quickly and stuff like that, and you think it's another. I said it last week, it's another 14 players through the door, it's another 14 players to bed into the side. The quality of the players that they brought in is way higher than last time. I think it's just trying to find a settled team. So hopefully it'll get better. I don't think it'll get better this week, just so people are ready for it.
We'll get to that all in good time. All in good time. From a predictions perspective, we'd all picked Forest to win. I'd gone for a 2-0. Sadly, didn't pick Wood for my goal scorers. Everyone else had gone 2-1. So up until Adebayo scoring, you were all bang on the money. You all had Morris to get the goal for Luton, so no points there. Stuart, Hudson-Odoi and Gibbs-White. Matt had Elanga and Gibbs-White to get the goals for us, so no points there for either of those two either. However, Mr. Cook had Hudson-Odoi and Wood to score, so bags himself a bonus point for the goal scorer. Second game of the week is Mr. Woodmansey's team. Now, obviously, he's not here, but he did send me some notes to go through on his on the game, as he was, of course, in attendance, as it was played at the MKM Stadium. So, sadly, Hull lost the game 2-1 with a 95th minute winner going in. So, not the best, not ideal. According to Mr. Woodmansey's notes, Hull were basically the only team playing in the first half, so they were all over Southampton. Until the 20th minute, where Smallbone scored against the run of play. He did go on to say that the Hull left back, Vinegra, had a bit of a shocker and wasn't playing particularly well. Hull did bring it back to 1-1 in the 25th minute when Liam Delap scored the equaliser. That's the way it stayed until half time, and it's the way it stayed until the 95th minute, as we'd ascertained before. Stu's put second half scrappy. So, not the best. And the 95th minute winner was slammed home by Ryan Fraser from around the edge of the box. One of those ones that he just absolutely hammers into the roof of the net. One of those ones where if you're a travelling Southampton fan, you're going away pretty happy there. Obviously a long journey, made all the better by the fact that you've got the 3 points in your back pocket. But if you're a home supporter, you're not too pleased. Predictions wise, 3 of us had gone for a draw, so we're very close to getting points there. I'd gone 2-2 with Delap and Philogene scoring for Hull. So I got myself a point for Delap scoring the goal. I had Armstrong and Adams scoring for Southampton, sadly, so no points for goal scorers there. Stu had 1-1 with Delap scoring again, so gets himself a bonus point there, and Armstrong. Andy had 1-1 with Syed Manesh and Armstrong scoring the goals, so sadly no points for Mr. Cook. Matt had picked a 3-1 Southampton win, so it was very close to getting a correct score on that one. Sadly, they couldn't find a 97th minute third or something like that. But, never mind. Matt also had Delap to score for Hull, so gets a bonus point for the goal scorer. Armstrong with 2 and Adams, sadly, were not the goal scorers for Southampton. So, points for myself and Stu, 2 points for Matt, no points for Andy on that one. Our third game of the week saw my boys, Middlesbrough, taking on, as of course we discussed last week, forever they'll be known as Wayne Rooney's Birmingham City in his first game in charge. Didn't obviously see much of this as it was a Saturday game and I wasn't there, so just had to go off the bits that were being sort of relayed to us via the social media accounts and Soccer Saturday, and it sounded like the first half was a bit dull, not an awful lot sort of occurred, and then when the second half kicked off, it sounded like it was all Middlesbrough for the entirety of the second half. Really, there was every time they kept going back to Neil Mellor, who was covering the game for Soccer Saturday. He said that Middlesbrough were firmly in control of the game, didn't really like conceding and were just peppering John Ruddy's goal. I think when I looked at the stats, I think at one point John Ruddy had made 10 saves for the shots that were on target. So he was very much keeping them in the game. Up until the 90th minute, when a long ball was punted up to Emmanuel Latte-Lath, who controlled the ball and played it into Morgan Rogers, who'd come on as a sub. He played the ball out to the right-hand side to Matt Crooks. On the right side of the box, he basically got it to the byline, cut the ball back, and Morgan Rogers just nipped in ever so slightly ahead of John Ruddy in the goal to just lift the ball over him at the near post and bring the Riverside into absolute raptures, it seemed, and that's the way it finished, with a slender 1-0 Middlesbrough win. Very happy. Sadly, Mr. Rooney not getting off to a positive start in his first game as Birmingham manager. Although we didn't call it, Birmingham were in the playoffs when they sacked John Eustace, and they've lost the first game under Wayne Rooney's stewardship. They do also have a game against Hull, because they cover later on. How did that one pan out? We'll find out later on. Predictions-wise, I'd gone for a 1-1 draw with Coburn and Stansfield to get the goals. No points for me. Stuart gone for a 2-2 draw. Barlaser and Coburn. Dembele and Stansfield to score for Birmingham. No points for him. Matt had gone for a 2-1 Borough win. Latte Lath and Fours with Bakuna scoring for Birmingham to get to the point for the result. Or for the win, sorry. Andy had gone 2-0 Borough with Latte Lath and Fours to score. Also gets himself a point for the result. Our fourth game of the week saw Shrewsbury Town, everyone's new favourite team, as they took on Derby County, and wouldn't you know, they won that game 1-0, which means Derby are cast aside. We won't have to talk about them, fingers crossed, ever again on the podcast, or for at least another couple of weeks, until some sort of gods conspire against us to put them back on the table. What made this one what was all the more sweet, was the fact that the goal for Shrewsbury wasn't even scored by a Shrewsbury player. It was an own goal by everyone's favourite Irishman, Conor Hourihane, you smarmy-arsed little twat. Put through his own goal. What a foolish man. Shouldn't be doing that, should you? Try scoring the opposition's net next time, Connor. You silly bastard. Predictions-wise, I'd gone for a 1-1 draw. Bayliss and Collins to score the goals, so no points for me. Matt had gone for a 2-0 Derby win. Waghorn and Collins, no points for Matthew. Stu and Andy had both gone for 1-0 Shrewsbury win, so get themselves 2 points for the correct goal scorer. Sadly, neither of them predicted a Conor Hourihane own goal, so didn't get any bonus points for the goal scorer. Just to clarify there, that was a Conor Hourihane own goal for Derby County in their own net against Shrewsbury Town in a league fixture in League One, of course. League One being the league where Derby are currently situated. Moving on, Game 5 saw my boys back in action again. It was Norwich City taking on Middlesbrough. Long old slog from Middlesbrough to Norwich on a Tuesday evening. Not the best trip you want to be making. But the Middlesbrough fans were rewarded with a 2-1 away win. This one again, not the best first half, bit sloppy. A lot of passes from both teams being played to the opposition. Not the greatest of stuff on show. 0-0 at half time. And then within 30 seconds of the restart, Norwich were playing the ball around the middle of the park. It was pinched by Hayden Hackney just outside the centre circle. He drove with the ball and laid it off to Josh Coburn on the edge of the box on the right hand side, who just played a lovely ball across the face of the goal to the unmarked Sam Greenwood, who side-footed the ball home to make it 1-0. And from there on, Borough were in perfect control of the game. Norwich did hit the bar with their closest effort, and Ben Gibson should have equalised at that point, actually, when he headed. He had basically a free header that he managed to put wide. I can only presume was that he thought he still had his Borough cap on and thought, I'll make it look like I'm going to score. but I'll just stick it the wrong side of the post so Borough can still keep the lead. So, Borough put the game to bed in around the 90th minute when Sam Silvera, on as a substitute, picked up a headed clearance that had come out to himself. He just carried it to the edge of the box and using the defender that was in front of him to sort of shield it so the keeper couldn't see, just curled the ball into the bottom corner to give Borough a 2-0 lead and put Norwich pretty much out of sight. They did get a goal back in around the 97th minute where Rowe, I can't remember his first name, I think it's Jason, but I'll just double check. Jonathan Rowe received the ball on the left-hand side of the box, carried it towards the bar and actually cut a lovely shot into the opposite corner past Senny Dieng in the Borough goal. No chance for the keeper, really. Shame it was anything other than a consolation for him because it was a really nice goal. And the game finished 2-1 for the Borough. Predictions-wise, Matt had gone for a 1-1 draw with Rowe scoring for Norwich and Jones scoring for Borough, so no points there for the result, but he does get a bonus point for the goal scorer. Stuart gone for a 3-1 Norwich win. Silly Mr. Woodmansey. Gibbs, Sarah and Ida to score for Norwich. McGree to score for Borough. No points there. Andy had gone for a 1-0 Borough win with Latte Laugh to score the goal, so gets himself a point for the result. I had gone for a 2-1 Middlesbrough win. Oh, how nice. I also had Rowe to score for Norwich. Crooks and Latte Laugh, the Borough goal scorers. So I get 2 points for the correct score and a point for the Norwich City goal scorer. Just the 2 games left from last week. Sadly, because it was last week, we did have to predict a second derby game. They won 2-0 against Exeter. We won't dwell on it. Mendes, Lang and Washington scored the goals. I'd gone 1-0 Exeter with Musk Way. No points for me. Andy had gone 1-0 Exeter. Cox. No points there. Stu, 3-0 derby win. Collins and Waghorn to score. No points for the goal scorers. Point for the result. Matt had gone 3-1 to derby. Waghorn Hurahan. That's funny because I don't know if you caught earlier, but he scored the own goal in the previous game that Derby had played. Silly man, scoring in his own goal. Well, what a foolish asshole. Collins for the third goal for Derby. Mitchell to get the consolation for Exeter. So no goal scorers there for Matt, but does get a point for the correct result. And our last game of the week saw Birmingham City take on Hull City. Sadly, I tuned into this one slightly too late to see the opening goal go in, which was Liam Delap after around 15 minutes scoring the opener for Hull. Another game where it was a bit poor, to be honest with you. A lot of misplaced passes. I always say this, and then I have to remember, well, yeah, of course there's a lot of misplaced passes, because if they were placing the ball to each other's feet every single time, they'd be playing for a Premier League side. But, you know, professional footballers and all that, apparently they are fallible. It stayed 1-0 through until around the 70th minute, where Jaden Philogene picked up the ball midway inside the Birmingham half and unleashed a bit of a cracker. Gave John Murray no chance to make it 2-0, and that's how the game petered out in the end. So, sadly, 2 games, no points, no goals for Wayne Rooney's Birmingham City. For the podcast, however, that is certainly not the case. Only Matt, with his 1-1 draw with Dembele to score for Birmingham and Delap to score for Hull, gets no points for the score, but does get a point for the goal scorer. I got 1-0 with Traore to score. No points there. No, sorry, point for the result, but not for the scorer. Stuart also got 1-0 with Connolly to score for Hull. Point for the result, not for the scorer. Mr. Cook, 2-0 Hull City win. 2 big points right there. Connolly and Delap to score. That's another bonus point there. So Andy gets 3 points for that game. So to round up the week, I had 5 points from 7 games in total. Stu had 5 points from 7 games in total. Matt, 6 points from 7 games in total. Andy wins the week, however, with 8 points from the 7 games that were on offer. Well played, Mr. Cook. That just leaves us with week 13's games to go through. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games to predict, ladies and gentlemen. But before we get into that, we're actually going to take a small break. We're going to refresh our glasses, so to speak, and then we'll come back at you with week 13's game picks. Don't you go anywhere, though. We'll be back straight after this.
Recording in progress.
Yes, indeed. Welcome back on in, ladies and gentlemen. So, week 12 done, week 13 ahead of us. Let's hope it's not unlucky for our teams. Our first game starts with Hull City taking on Preston North End. Obviously, Mr. Woodmansey not here, but has sent me his predictions. So I'll give his last. I'll dive in straight away here. I've gone for a 1-1 draw in this one. I've gone for Delap to score for Hull and Keane to score for Preston. I believe that would very much be old boy curse on both sides. So, fingers crossed on that one. Matt, what have you got for Hull versus Preston?
I've gone for a Hull 2-1 win.
Your goal scorers, please.
I've gone quite boring. I've gone Delap and Philogene.
Yeah.
And for Preston, Osmajic.
What?
Osmajic, is it? Osmajic. Osmajic.
I have never heard of that guy.
He scored tonight, so.
Fair enough. Well, there you go. Andy?
Simple, elegant, 1-0 Hull win. Delap.
The Dilapidator.
Delapatron.
Stu agrees. He has also gone for a 2-0 Hull City win with Delap and Slater to get the goals. Next game is Middlesbrough versus Stoke City. Stoke fresh off a stunning 1-0 win against Leeds where the goal was scored by not a Stoke player. Pascal Strauch put it through his own goal. Mere minutes after Patrick Bamford had skied a penalty straight over the bar for Leeds. God, you hate to see it. Middlesbrough versus Stoke. My team, obviously, I will go last. Stuart's gone straight in here with a 3-1 Middlesbrough win. He's very confident. Gone for Jones, Crooks and Latte Lath to get the goals for the Borough. Low to score for Stoke. Andy, what have you gone for here?
2-0 Borough win. Latte
Goal
Laugh
scorers?
and Fours.
Latte Laugh and Fours. Matt?
I've gone for a Borough 2-1 win.
Okay.
Jones and Crooks to score for the Borough.
Yours?
And me for Stoke. 2 M's, an A, 2 E's.
Oh, yeah. This guy's name popped up on Saturday, because did he score against Sunderland?
I think so, yeah. Me.
If he does score, I can only presume that the guy on the public address system will have an absolute field day trying to pronounce that. I agree with Stu. I've gone for a 3-1 Borough win here. I've gone for Crooks, Coburn and Rogers to score for Borough. And obviously I had to get a bit of Gooch out, didn't I, for Stoke. So, get Gooches out, lads. Get Gooches out. Our next game does not involve Derby County, as the curse has been lifted. Our new boys are Shrewsbury Town. So Andy will be throwing his support behind the Shrews, who used to play at Gay Meadow. Just as a little side note. They now play at the new Meadow.
Oh, the new Meadow.
The new Meadow. Shrewsbury also quite close to the Wales border. So you're almost working your way back to Wrexham at this point, Mr. Cook. Let's see if we can get you there sooner rather than later. So Shrewsbury this week are taking on Wigan away from home. It is, of course, Mr. Cook's team, so he will go last. Matt, what have you got for this one?
I've gone for another new team. 2-1 Wigan win.
Yeah.
I've gone for a nice little whole old boys kind of thing. Is it Wyke and McGuinness?
Now, I need to check the White one because I was going to pick White, and I don't know if he's injured or suspended or something. Let me do a little bit of digging. His name popped up on something. Charlie White injured? Question mark. So, as of the 25th of October, which is today's date, Wigan Athletic boss lifts lid on Charlie White omission and injury fears ahead of Shrewsbury trip or visit. Apparently he had a 3-match suspension. Oh no, so he is available. He's just not being played because the other players in the squad are performing better. So that is a perfectly legitimate pick. So, sorry, was it McGuinness and White?
Yeah.
You've gone for?
And Udo for Shrewsbury.
UDOH. Udo. Stuart's gone for a 1-1 draw here. Probably the best named guy in the league, Philo Arsgaard, to score for Wigan. And Matter, pretty sure it's not Juan, scoring for Shrewsbury. Sadly, I agree with Matt. I think Mr. Cook will be changing teams again after this weekend. I've also gone for a 2-1 Wigan win. I've gone for McGuinness and Humphreys to score for Wigan, Bayliss to score for Shrewsbury. Andy, what do you think your lads will do in Wigan?
I think we're going to be sticking with Shrewsbury for a little while. So I've got a 0-1, and I have Watts to score that goal.
Watts. Our second to last fixture takes us to Sunday and sees Liverpool taking on Nottingham Forest. Obviously, Liverpool will be off the back of a midweek European fixture. I will have a look and see who they are playing. Liverpool are playing Toulouse. Let's hope they do.
They're playing Toulouse.
Liverpool versus Toulouse. It is in Liverpool, so obviously they won't have any travel or anything to get over, any jet lag. I mean, it's only France, so it's not exactly the furthest location away if they were playing. But obviously they'll only have a couple of days rest, whereas Nottingham Forest will have been rested nicely since the previous Saturday. Mr. Moore's team, he will go last. I'll go to Andy first for his prediction on this one. What have you gone for?
I've got a 1-2 Nottingham Forest win.
Ooh.
You knows it.
Goal scorers, please.
Salah for Liverpool.
Yes.
And as always, I'm not going to pass up the opportunity to get my wood out. And I'm going to follow it up with a Hudson Odoi.
Ah. Is he injured or is he ill?
Injured. He's out for 6 weeks.
I mean, Mother Hubbard.
You can go for the other double barreler if you want. Or you can double down and get some really hard wood.
I will have Alanga.
Ooh, I like it. Both assists at the weekend for Mr. Alanga. Very good as well, as I put him in my fantasy team. So, very happy with that. Stu, sadly, has gone for a 2-0 Liverpool win. Goals each for Diaz and Nunez. And I'm afraid I'm inclined to agree with Mr. Woodmansey. I've also gone for a 2-0 win, but I've gone for Salah to get both. It sounded earlier in the podcast like he wasn't particularly optimistic. So, Matt, how do you think this one's going to pan out?
I've gone for a 3-1 Liverpool win. I think they seem to have got back into form somehow, and I think there'll be an element, even though they beat us 3-2 at home at the end of last season, and there'll be a level of revenge to kind of prove a point. So I've got Salah with 2, same as yourself, and Gakpo to get the 3rd.
Ooh, hang on a second. Now, is he injured?
Oh, for God's sake.
Let me just double check, because I think I had him in fantasy, and he was out of the squad. I will just double check. Keep talking amongst yourselves. Great time to be alive. Oh no, lack of match fitness, 75% chance of playing. So he's not injured, he's just knackered apparently.
He might come on as a sub then.
Yeah, I think so. Gakpo. Oh yeah, sorry. According to my friend who lives in the Netherlands, apparently it's not Gakpo. Apparently it's Gakpo. So there's us told. Bloody ignorant Brits. God. You're not in the Forest goal scorer?
Old boy rules Origi.
Ah, of course. He'd be stupid not to play him, really, wouldn't he?
Right, he'll come on as a sub.
Our final game of the week is League Cup action. And as my boys are the only team left in the competition from our perspective, it is Exeter City versus Middlesbrough. My team, so I will go last. Stuart's gone for a 2-1 Middlesbrough win. He's gone for Aitchison to score for Exeter, McGree and Howson to score for the Borough. Andy, what have you got for this one?
Same score as Stu. I've got a 1-2. 1-2. Never going to pass up the opportunity to get the old Cox out for Exeter. And I thought I'd mix it up this week. I often predict the same for the Borough, so I've gone with 2 players who are almost definitely injured. Rogers and Silvera.
Nope, both fit. Both played last night.
It's a modern day miracle.
Matt, what have you gone for?
I, strangely enough, have also gone for a 2-1 Middlesbrough win.
Goal scorers?
Mitchell for Exeter.
Yeah.
And Coburn and Greenwood for the Borough.
Very, very nice. I agree. However, I've gone for a 2-0 Borough win. I've gone for Silvera and Gilbert to score. I think he might give a chance to the first guy they signed this summer. Brought him in from Brentford's B team. Might give him a run out and see how he gets on. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of this week's predictions. I would say, is there any other business? But I've obviously I was supposed to actually start the podcast with this week, and I completely forgot. But obviously, when it was half time in the Saturday kickoff, the Saturday 3 o'clock kickoffs, it came to light that Sir Bobby Charlton had passed away in the early hours of Saturday morning, and obviously that was quite poignantly felt at the Borough, as obviously he was a Manchester United legend, and Michael Carrick and Wayne Rooney are arguably two of the sort of more well-known players for Man United in the last 10 or 15 years. And obviously they were both on the touchline as they flashed up a picture of Sir Bobby on the big screen at the Riverside, and I believe there was a brief round of applause that went round, and I believe there was a minute's applause at most of the games that were played either last night or this night in a tribute to Bobby Charlton. So I just got up a little bit of his information, like his details, to go through some of his stats. So he played almost his entire career at Manchester United, starting in 1956 and leaving Manchester United in 1973. In total, he played 606 games. No, he didn't. 758 games in total, scoring 249 goals. So what's that, about 1 in 3? Which, for a guy who was he was a forward, but he kind of wasn't really a forward. He always seemed like he was like, he always seemed to be like in the sort of the clips stuff that I played. He played with the number 9 on his back, but he never seemed to be a centre forward.
He's that. To be fair, he's kind of like in a way, he was ahead of his time. Really, he's that kind of midfielder that you see now.
He was a stereotypical number. Well, it was weird, wasn't it? Because he was the number 9, but he played as a number 10. Really?
Yeah, he's Jude Bellingham. I think, like, you see the kind of from what I've seen of him and stuff like that. He's Jude Bellingham. It's like, I mean, my dad always talked about Bobby Charlton kind of thing, because obviously my dad would have been 9, 10 when England won the World Cup. He was 13, 14 when in the 70 World Cup. And my dad was always said was the thing that lost. England should have won the 70 World Cup as well, because that team was better than the 66 World Cup. And Ramsey got cocky and took Charlton had Beckenbauer, who was regarded as the best player in the world at the time, in his back pocket, and had kind of absolutely bossed the game. And Ramsey took him off to save him for the semi-finals, I think.
I think so.
And at that point, because he'd taken Charlton off, Beckenbauer took over the game, and from that, England went from being 2-1 up to 3-2 to a 3-2 loss. And my dad was like, yeah, and that was all to do with Charlton.
Yeah.
I think it's that kind of thing of like, you're starting to see that, and I know kind of time passes and stuff like that, but we're down to one player from the 66 World Cup team being left alive now. We've just got Jeff Hurst left.
It's literally just him.
It's just Jeff. The team, I don't know about the squad, but I think it's pretty much, I think we're down to just Sir Jeff Hurst now in terms of that kind of thing. But yeah, like listening to some of the tributes and listening to what people said, they were like, oh yeah, I think someone said, oh, would he have fitted into today's game? And they were like, oh yeah, easily, he would have found it borderline, easy kind of thing with the, what you had to put up with it thing. And you got to kind of go back to the fact that obviously he was part of the United team that was in the Munich air crash as well. So he missed 2 years worth of his career recovering from that, because he was in a hell of a state. Like he almost lost his life there, kind of thing. It wasn't just that he was like obviously the Busby Babes and all that kind of thing. He was part of that kind of Manchester United squad that probably should have won a European Cup then, but didn't. But then obviously won the World Cup and then European Cup within 2 years of each other.
Yeah.
I think like someone has said as well that obviously him and Jack Charlton are the only two brothers to have won both the World Cup and the European Cup as well, which is quite a unique.
Crazy.
Yeah. And something else, like because they're from Ashington, I'll say a small mining town just up the road from us, and four players in the England team or squad around that time. Obviously, the two Charlton brothers, and then another two guys from the same street that they lived on. And it was just absolutely mental that from that small town in the northeast of England, these four players all came from, and one of them was arguably the best player in the world at the time.
Yeah. So obviously those stats that I gave earlier were his club stats. For England, obviously, this is before the breakup of the Soviet Union, the Balkan states, and things like that, when the countries weren't as spread out as they are now, or there wasn't as much of a concentration, certainly in Europe. So he played 106 times for the England team and scored 49 goals, which was the at the time was the best, was the most goals scored by an England player up until Wayne Rooney beat that in I think 2017. And then obviously it's since been overtaken by Harry Kane. But as we keep saying on the podcast, a lot of Harry Kane's goals have been scored against the sort of the minnow states that weren't around when Bobby Charlton was playing. So if he'd have played against Macedonia, Malta, San Marino, you could probably add another 40 or 50 goals onto his tally, and he'd be looking at basically a goal a game if he was playing against teams that were filled with postmen and policemen and stuff like that, rather than actual footballers. But yeah, just a very sad loss, like you say. Obviously, he was a member of the '66 World Cup squad, and actually the team that won the final. Yeah, just a very sad loss. Let's say that. So yeah, it's always a shame to end the podcast on a slight downer. But one thing that I did hear on a podcast I was listening to was that someone said it's a shame that when your time's up, you don't get like a little notification, so like you could sort of hear all the nice things that people say about you and stuff like that on the trip they pay to you. And someone else like chimed in then and said, "Oh, I think he was aware. He will have known sort of how appreciated he was sort of in the football fraternity and things like that. I think towards the end of his life, I think he'd been diagnosed with and was suffering with a bit of, he'd gone into the stages of dementia. So maybe his memories and things like that weren't as clear as they once were. But yeah, he was certainly, in my sort of knowledge of football, he's always been talked about in the sort of the greats of the English game, like him and Stanley Matthews and other players of that ilk. So yeah,
I think
we'll certainly be missed.
The last thing, because they had the interview that I heard was with Nobby Stiles' son. Obviously, Nobby Stiles only died a couple of years ago, and he was like, "Oh yeah, when we were around him, you didn't know that he was the best footballer in the world at the time, or second best to Pele or whatever." He said it was only until you went to the shops and everybody swarmed around him, and he said, "Yeah, that was when he was like playing in his 30s." He's like, it still happened in his 70s and 80s as well, and that shows kind of the reverence of somebody, because like there's probably players now that were decent in the 90s that could probably go and walk down the street and no one would really know who they were, whereas like Bobby Charlton still had that kind of up until he was not well enough to go out again. I think that's
So there you have it then, gentlemen. Like I say, sad. Always sad to end on a sad note on the podcast. But when it's a person who was as sort of much of a contribution to the English game as that, you have to. It's right to sort of mention him on the podcast and stuff like that. So all that's left is for me to thank these two gentlemen for joining me to give you the breakdown of their teams. Obviously, fingers crossed, Mr. Woodmansey will be back next week to give us the whole lowdown. But join us again in a week's time where we'll do it all again. We'll break down this week's games. We'll go through next week's games, and hopefully we'll have a nice little bit of chat. Sadly, obviously, we won't be able to have a laugh at Derby's expense anymore. But let us know if you enjoyed it. We'll just make it a weekly occurrence on the podcast. Like, what can we laugh at Derby for this week, etc., etc. Well, until that time, take care of yourselves, and we'll see you next week. Ta-ta for now.
So there we go. What do you think of that? Happy birthday to Stu. Hope it was a fantastic day. Thank you all for listening. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for being here. Before you go, please do consider like, share, subscribe and comment. Leave a review where you can leave a review. Check out the website, thecookiecast.com. There you'll find social media links and an email button for you to get in touch with us. That's it for this one. Until next time, I'm going to say bye, and I'll see you then.
Thank you for listening to these grumpy old men talk about football. If you've enjoyed this episode, please like, share and subscribe.